Hi, good evening, and welcome to Smooth FM, the home to Smooth. No, so welcome to tonight's web chat or webinar with Katharine Birbalsingh. My name is Tom Bennett, and if you're not here for the conversation with Katharine Birbalsingh, please feel free to leave. I believe we're fully booked out for this event, so I don't know how many thousand people that means. But anyway, live broadcasting to you from Corona Central, which means everyone's homes. I'm sure this would have been in a much more salubrious setting had it not been in present circumstances. But I'm glad everyone could join us. And I'm glad that Katharine Birbalsingh could join us. If you need me to introduce Katharine Birbalsingh to you, I don't know why you're here. So I'm not going to. And I'm not important, but what will be happening over the next 35 minutes is that Katharine and I will be in conversation about her new book, but mostly about her kind of roller coaster of a school called Michaela Community School. From previous conversations with Katharine, I know that I'll probably have to hold up a red stick to get her to stop talking at some point. But so I think the conversation might be a slightly dilute way of describing what's going to be happening over the next 40 minutes. We've got a huge number of questions, and I can prove it because they're here, from people that were sent in, and there were dozens and dozens and scores of questions. And I have to say they're actually quite sensible. I mean, normally when we do these kind of things, you get them sent in on, you know, traveling paper, written in crayon, and it's fairly badly spelled, and people get quite angry. But these are brilliant questions, so I'm going to try and answer as many as possible. I don't think we'll be able to get through them. And I hope that everyone can see, I hope that everyone's watching. I see here we've got almost 1,000 attendees, which is just extraordinary. Have you all had your dinner? I hope you have. Right, so I'm going to move on now to the main event, which is Katharine Birbalsingh, which is a tremendous honour. Katharine, it's lovely to see you again. I've had the pleasure of coming to your school up what feels like 500 times. I guess my first question to you, just to open up really, is this. So Michaela Community School, when it got its first GCSE results in 2019, you were 5th in the country for Progress 8. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, for viewers outside of the UK, that's like basically 5th in the country for your grades. In maths, it came top of every school assessed by this standard. Top. I have to remember the Michaela Community School. 4th in humanities, 3rd in science, and unluckily only 12th when it came to languages. So I guess my first question to you is, Katharine Birbalsingh, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, well, you know, I just had a staff meeting actually, and you know, the staff are brilliant. They are amazing. They're a real team. And I do think that a lot of what we talk about in the book is actually what it is to be a team, both in terms of staff, but also with the children and the power of culture, and how if you get the culture right, and if you all buy into that culture, then it makes you really strong. And I mean, there are lots of things that I think that we get right. I think we get behavior right. I think we have really high standards of behavior. I think children find it difficult to learn in classrooms where there's lots of disruption. We don't have much of that. I think that, or any of it really. Yeah, I mean, really, and I know that seems odd to anyone who hasn't visited Michaela. It seems like a strange claim to say that we don't have any disruption, but we really don't have any disruption in lessons. And it means that all the children can feel confident enough to be able to put their hands up in lessons and to engage with the lesson and so on. And this is one of the things that visitors say all the time, is how amazed they are by the engagement, the level of engagement from the children. There's also the way in which we teach, which we stand at the front and we teach. And for viewers who aren't necessarily familiar with schools these days, that isn't necessarily what happens in all schools. Sometimes you have the teacher who moves amongst the desks, and the children are in groups and they're getting on with work as the teacher sort of keeps them on task. Whereas we see the teacher being at the front and the desks are in rows, and the teacher is very much the leader of the classroom. And that happens in every single classroom. And we have the same behavior systems that happen in every single classroom. So that consistency and that culture that's created, the habits that are inculcated in the children, they become just part of who we are. And so all of that contributes to the success that we see with children who, again, if there are people who don't know our school, we're in the inner city. We're very much a typical inner city school with a typical inner city intake. You know, there are problems with knives, there are problems with alcohol and drugs and all sorts. I mean, it's the normal situation. Parents who aren't necessarily supportive, any head teachers out there who are watching will be familiar with sometimes parents who can be problematic. And we have all of that sort of thing that comes with challenging intake. And yet there aren't any disruptions in lessons. And so that I think I put it down to our systems and to our culture.
Yeah, can I just say, obviously we're going to talk a lot more about the book in a second. There was things about it which I thought were brilliant. I've had the pleasure of looking at the book beforehand. I mean, who doesn't enjoy reading a PDF, a 200-page PDF on a computer? Who doesn't enjoy that? But the thing I loved about it was the fact that for people who aren't quite so familiar with your school, perhaps haven't had the chance to go to Michaela. I don't know if there's anyone left in education who hasn't actually been to Michaela yet. It seems to be quite a legendary experience. But like Disneyland, it's closed just now, but a very different type of Disneyland. One of the things I loved about this book, more than even than the first book, was the fact that you've got such an emphasis on the structures and systems behind the school. I very much felt like you'd mapped the DNA, the human genome, and then made it public access. You'd really ripped your guts out and said, this is who we are, rather than a kind of a, shall we say, a kind of secretive, these are our special formulas and we're not going to tell you, I'm not going to share it with you. There was a tremendous sense of transparency about it, which I think activates and animates many of your critics who claim that there isn't transparency, who claim that you're this kind of secretive cult. I mean, and I know that at some point you probably do microchip the children, but I certainly haven't, certainly the staff, but I haven't seen it myself. So, I mean, what was your thinking when you decided to go down these, for instance, you've got chapters by, members of your admin staff and so on, talking about, what it's like to work here?
Well, and that's because, of course, a school is made up of teachers, of admin staff, of kitchen staff, of caretakers. It's made up of everyone, and they all play a really key role in making the school happen. So anyone who's comfortable enough writing, I mean, obviously it's not easy writing, I wanted them to be able to participate and show that side of the school. I mean, anyone who does say that we're not transparent, I find that bizarre, given that we open our doors more than any other school anywhere, and that anyone can come and visit the school. We get over 600 visitors a year coming to see us, and we let anyone come, and we enjoy that because I suppose it spreads the word, and it just shows what we do. And it's not necessarily right for everybody, and not everyone necessarily wants to do that. I'm a great believer in freedom for heads, so I don't think, I don't want to impose these ideas on anyone. I want to say, here we are, this is what we do, and if you like some of those ideas, please take them. And I'd like to help you do that by coming to visit us and see it in action. And that's why, so we wrote our first book, Bennett and the Tiger Teachers, which was more pedagogical, maybe. It was just about the various things that that happen in the school and different teachers. I mean, you called it my book. It really isn't my book. It's everyone. It's Michaela's book, and all of the staff, they've contributed. And I mean, I have a chapter, but I just have one chapter in the introduction. Everyone else, the whole book is made up of what the staff at Michaela think, and they have very much decided on their own what they think. They've come to me and said, oh, I'd like to write a chapter on this, and I've said, great, go ahead. And they've done that individually, and it was really interesting for me reading the chapters later, because I haven't told them what to say. I mean, they've gone off and written what they want, and then when I read them, I can see that thread of culture pumping through all of them. You know that it's a Michaela teacher who's writing that chapter, and the culture is just so important to any organization. Anyone who leads an organization, not just a school, will tell you that the tighter your culture, the more successful you will be, whatever that culture is. And we have a very particular culture. And so when you say we bear all, you're absolutely right. And I'm a bit nervous, in putting this book out. I didn't really want to put these ideas out earlier because I just thought, there are a lot of people who don't like us already. And I didn't really want to stir flames,
You're such a private individual, Catherine. We rarely hear about your school. You get yourself out more, I feel.
But then I thought it was unfair. So, and what I mean by that is, there are a lot of people out there who quietly like what we do, who quietly take ideas and implement them in their schools and find that they improve things for them. And that absolutely thrills me because, you know, as we all at Michaela, we do what we do for our kids and for the school, but we also do it because we want to have impact on the wider educational debate. And so it always makes me so happy when people take ideas and find that they improve their classroom or their school. But what I was aware of was that we hadn't been, well, I mean, it's not that we hadn't been truthful, but I hadn't given them everything. I'd given them various bits, which absolutely the first book does, but the heart of the school, that beating heart underneath, I don't think was revealed. And that's what this book does. It explains stuff that people wouldn't necessarily know just in visiting the school for a couple of hours one afternoon. And a lot of that stuff will be controversial. And some people might read it and think, oh my goodness, how can they do that? And I suppose what I would ask your audience, if you're teachers, to give it a chance. All of the staff at Michaela love children and they love their jobs and they want to do good for children. So if we're doing this stuff, it's because we believe it does good for them. And if you've been to the school, I think you'll find that they are very happy, the children, and that they're learning lots and that much has been achieved. So while it might, you know, it might shake you up a bit and you might not feel comfortable with it, you know, maybe put it down for a bit, come back to it a few months later, go and visit Michaela in the meantime, then come back to it, have a conversation with a friend. Maybe if you know somebody who knows a Michaela teacher, chat with them. It is about a mind shift in some, you know, some of the ideas that are in there. But it's one that I hope some of you have the courage to maybe take.
I love the way you phrase it there. Like, we finally wanted to get things off our chest. I feel like saying, you know, what else aren't you telling them, Katharine Birbalsingh? What else are you hiding from us? You know, the dungeons made of children's tears. I think what's interesting, also for me, is that I remember speaking to a journalist who visited your school. I know that you very rarely have journalists in your school, and he came along. And he came from, essentially, shall we say, a very left-leaning paper, and he came away saying that while it was a very impressive school, that there was nothing particularly controversial going on, and that he'd seen, you know, scores of other schools in his career who were as strict, or that had silent corridors, or that got children, you know, reciting poetry or something like that. It's just that, you know, you put kind of lots of these things together, and that he'd seen other schools doing very, very similar things, but who weren't quite so kind of noisy. And I think that's something that very much surprises people that actually come to your school, that they're pleasantly surprised or rather charmed by how uncontroversial it is. And, you know, and I'm not trying to detract from anything you just said there, because I know that there is a lot of controversy surrounding it. So my confession is I've been to your school several times, and my very publicly revealed confession is I'm very, very impressed by it. I think it's an exceptional school. It's extraordinary, and, you know, there's lots of reasons to think that. When I went to the school, and a lot of people will be familiar with your lunches, your public lunches, family lunches, and they're quite regimented by everybody's standards. The children come in, you know, bellowing Rudyard Kipling. And then they sit down and they've all got roles and tasks and jobs, and the adult sits at the table and gets grilled by these incredibly precocious children about what you do for a living, what his behaviours are. And that's the point at which I really started to talk to the kids. I said to them, you know, do you like it here? Is it nice? You know, tell me the real truth. And they went, we love it. And I think, honestly, that for me was transformational. They said, we didn't just like it, we loved it. And every child I spoke to, and I grabbed several, said, no, we love it. It's really good. We feel safe. They like us here. They look after us. We care. We learn, and so on. And I think that visitors are slightly charmed when they come there, which brings me to my next question. Sorry, I'll stop talking, which is this. The chapter titles in this book are extraordinarily, you know, incendiary to some extent. chapter 6, Why We Hate Children, is, you know, is quite broken. There's no chapter. There's no chapter called that. There's no chapter. You know, you've got chapters, you know, why we must be patriotic, or words to that effect. And you've got chapters about, you know, why we must teach dead white men. And yet when you read the chapter, it unpacks and unpicks and explores what you actually mean. And it's a lot more, shall we say, nuanced and uncontroversial than perhaps the title suggests. I mean, one of the things I often hear people say about you is that you court this kind of controversy. I mean, the first week of your Year 7 induction is called boot camp. You know, you can never resist a martial metaphor. So my question to you is, are you shock jocks? Are you agent provocateurs? I mean, what's your strategy when it comes to that?
Well, you know, the thing is, whenever I give a talk anywhere, I always start off by apologizing to the audience, because I know that I will say something that I think is just common sense, but that other people will find shocking. So I'm aware of that, but I just say what I think. That's the thing. I think a lot of people don't say what they think, and I think one, a lot of people don't say what they think. Two, especially nowadays in 2020, people can feel very awkward about admitting that they think certain things. Sometimes I see on Twitter, people will even say, you know, oh, sometimes I worry that I agree with Katharine Birbalsingh a bit too much. Or I think, for instance, one of the reasons why we've got, I see we've got over 1,100 people in here with us tonight. And hello, everyone. You know, it's very strange, this idea.
Packed, yes.
Even though it just feels like Tom and I are having a conversation. But, you know, I think a lot of the reason why people can come on tonight is because no one knows that they're watching and they can do it quietly. And I think that it's scary for them because there are a number of people out there who want to control the debate and want to control schools and want to tell schools what they can and cannot do. And as I said at the beginning, I believe in real freedom for heads and senior teams being able to decide what they feel is right for their school. And I hope that they do that in conversation with their staff so that they can give the best education possible. Obviously, I would love to influence them. So that's why I say, everyone come and visit our school. And if somebody takes on board the idea of desks in rows and teachers standing at the front, I think, whoopee, I'm so pleased they've decided to do that. But I certainly would never enforce my ideas on them. But I do think there are people in teaching who want to enforce their ideas, and that they have a certain grip on the education system, and that there are a number of teachers out there who don't agree with them, but they can't say it out loud. And I get a lot of people telling me, maybe DMs on Twitter, or anytime I'm at a conference, right? People quietly come up to me and they say, I really like what you're saying, but they'll never say it out loud.
Yeah.
I just say what I think. I only wish everybody would. I don't know what it is in me that makes it so that I feel happy saying what I think, but I do. And then in addition to that, I'm relatively traditional in my views. So my views don't necessarily fit with 2020. And so people then think that there's this clash, and they think, why is she saying this, you know? But I don't know, I'm just saying it because I think it's true. And it comes from a good place. What I mean is that, one, I feel I speak for people who cannot speak because they feel too intimidated. But two, I also think it's right. I believe in truth. I believe in there being such a thing as truth. And I feel it doesn't get much of a hearing these days. And so I like to shout about it. Yeah,
that certainly comes across. It's tempting to ask you to kind of dredge over, you know, your entire past, because it's a very, very interesting story, particularly as it relates to the progress of Michaela and so on. One of the things you do in the introduction to your book is you particularly focus in on the contrast between 2010 and 2020. We didn't expect we'd be here, certainly. And I remember that time very well, when I was writing about it, and from my own meagre position. And things were very, very different.
Yes.
And I remember I used to write quite freely, but only because I had no idea that it was a problem. You know, it's because I was so naive that I wrote quite freely.
Right.
somebody like yourself who spoke up about some of the systemic problems in education, not just in the UK, but kind of globally, it seems.
Yeah.
And you get clobbered for it. And
Yeah.
then, you know, at a point when so many other people would have stayed clobbered, you know, or changed careers,
Yes.
or gone, you know, gone to Canada or whatever fairyland ending you can think of. You decided to do something which is probably the hardest thing in the world. You went to start a free school at a time when free schools were relatively uncommon. And the process by which they were created was still very problematic. You had an extraordinarily hard time starting Michaela. You were forced to abandon site after site, often by people who had no connection whatsoever to the area, but just were terribly against the vision that you had. Now that vision has culminated in Michaela and is extraordinarily successful. Will you talk a wee bit about the type of people? No, that's not the right question. The reasons why people so object to what it is that you stand for. I mean, is it, you know, is it gender? Is it ethnicity? Is it ideology? What's you know, why are you so beloved and also such a kind of a lightning rod in many ways? Or what Michaela is?
I am very outspoken. Although I do think there is a race element to it, actually. I do. I think that when people in the day would accuse me of betraying them by speaking at the Tory party conference in 2010. So I begin in the book, I talk in the introduction about 2010 and how I spoke at the Conservative Party conference. And a lot of what was directed at me was this idea that I had betrayed the teaching profession. And someone like me, especially of my color, is not really allowed to do that. I find time and time again in my life, being, you know, the way I look, that not being white, essentially, you're not allowed to have certain views. You're not allowed. You're meant to be very grateful to the left, and I'm not really. I mean, some of my views are on the left. You know, actually, it is the case that some of my views are on the left. But generally speaking, I probably call myself a small C conservative, and I'm not allowed to be that. I'm meant to be grateful to the left, and you know what? In many ways, I am. I think over you know, decades before, I think the left. I say the same thing in my speech actually at Conservative Party conference in 2010, but I say it about teaching. That I say that the left has done much good for education, and I talk about wanting to pull it back because it's gone too far. And I'd say the same here with regard to race. So I do think. That race has a part, you know, a part. It's hard to say how much, but I do think that the anger that they feel towards me, and the kind of obsession, you know, as I talk about in the introduction, there were times when, you know, there was a whole time where I would go home from school and I would look over my shoulder. I was genuinely worried about what might happen to me. And, you know, I felt my life was in danger. You know, like that's crazy. You know, I used to think, well, all we're doing is setting up a school, you know. You'd think we were building nuclear arms. And all those people, they would protest outside the school. They protested outside our events for parents. They'd call me names. They would send abusive emails, racist emails, awful stuff, really awful stuff. And they did this thinking that they were doing good. That's what we need to remember, is that these people, and that's what I say about those people who are right now are listening to this, right now with us, who are too scared to do it, you know, openly. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for being scared, because these people are really scary. And the big difference for me between 2010 and 2020 is that we're free. We've broken free. Those people are still there, and they're still attacking, but they're smaller in number. And they don't have the power that they used to have. And schools like Michaela, I mean, you know, you very kindly have spoken, you know, very positively about Michaela, but I know that there are a bunch of schools out there have taken similar ideas and are doing similar types of things. And we're growing in number, and we're stronger and stronger every year, you know? And that is just thrilling, because I know in 20 years and 30 years, you know, we're going to be able to look back at this time, and we're going to say, wow, there was a revolution that took place in education. And so that's why I say to everybody who's watching, be brave, you know, just, and be brave intellectually. So when you read this, at first it's gonna shake your world a bit, and you're just gonna not like it. I know that, but give it a chance, because all the stuff that perhaps some of you take for granted now. So in 2010, the idea of I don't know, silent corridors, which Mossbourne had tried for years before, but it certainly wasn't something that several schools were doing in the way that happens now. There are many schools trying out these ideas, or teachers standing at the front, and that all the teachers should be doing that with the desks in the rows. That kind of thing, it was so different in 2010, which I go into more detail in my introduction. Things have changed massively. And stuff that you now think is normal. A lot of you, any of you who are younger, you know, if you're in your 20s, you think it's normal to have a conversation about knowledge and skills, and, you know, should we do direct instruction is something that you think, that phrase, direct instruction, you've heard of it and you think it's normal. Well, I can tell you in 2005, nobody was talking about direct instruction. Nobody was talking about knowledge and skills. There was no debate to be had. And that is because the people who are detractors, the people who call me names and broke onto our site and have done everything to try and stop us, they ruled the roost then. They were in charge. And the people like, well, not just me, people like Michaela, the woman who we named the school after. Yep. So many old school teachers out there were just teaching quietly in their classrooms, getting on with things and hoping that their SLT didn't come in to watch them, right? Things have totally transformed, and it's so exciting for me personally, and for the entire school, for Michaela, for all of us to be part of that, of this revolution, because as I say in the book, you know, when you die, when you're on your deathbed, you know, and I hope I get to 85, 90 years old, and I look back, I want to be able to say that I contributed, that I gave something, and I had impact on the world. And I can see that Michaela is having impact. It comes from a good place. Everything, my whole life is about teaching. I love it. I love children. I think about education all of the time. And everything that we do is about making education better. And all of the staff at Michaela feel exactly the same way. And they're just like you. They're the teachers who love the subject, who love kids. And they didn't necessarily think the way that they do now when they first came to Michaela. You know, they thought differently. And then over time, they changed their minds. And the reason they changed their minds over time was because they started to see the results. You know, one of the things people come, like you said, about patriotism and national identity. There's a chapter in there about national identity. And we sing God Save the Queen and I vow to thee my country. And some people on Twitter are horrified. You know, how can you make children do this? And when visitors come, they always comment on how resilient our kids are, on how confident they are, how determined. Well, I believe wholeheartedly that one of the big reasons why they are so confident is because they belong. They belong to their country, and they know they belong because that is reinforced daily by their teachers who love them, by their headmistress who comes in, you know, and they've just been singing God Save the Queen, you know, this is at assembly, I mean, you know, and we believe that whatever your color, whatever your religion, that we are all bound together by our country, and that we can all sing God Save the Queen because she is ours and she is mine, even if I have brown skin. And that the guilt that sometimes whites can feel around that, they think, oh, they're imposing something on me. No, it's our right to have it too. It's our right to belong in this country. And there are too many people who tell me that I don't belong, or that the children at our school don't belong because they're not of the right religion or they're not the right color. But all of us, whatever color we are all British together. And that is something to be celebrated. When England was playing in the World Cup, we'd come in daily. Have we won? What's the score? Where are we at? We had England flags everywhere. And you know what? I don't care about football. I mean, what do I know about football? I don't know anything. Right? But it was an opportunity for us all to be together as one. And that is the power of culture. When I say what makes us strong, we are a team and we all go out there together. And if you come and visit Michaela, you will see that in action, because you go from room to classroom, and you will see there's a thread that ties everybody together. Everybody has their own personalities, their own little quirks, their own ways. But it's like what I say, they went off and wrote those chapters, but you read them and you feel that power of the culture of Michaela running through those chapters. Mm-hmm. And it just makes the school and the children that much stronger.
You know, thank you. That'll teach me. Your enthusiasm is literally melting my Wi-Fi at this point. That's incredibly encouraging, and nothing I haven't heard before from you. I heard you speaking on many separate occasions. I remember hearing you speak in New Zealand, of all places. Yes. And there was a room of about 400 people there, and they were all head teachers who were just lining up to say that they completely agreed with what you said, and that they weren't allowed to say it, and they felt like it was so liberating to hear somebody say it. So I think to some extent, your skill and obviously your natural aptitude as kind of a rallying point is very useful. I think the fact that you don't give a damn well, obviously you do, but not in that sense, is very useful. And I remember when I was writing my own report about behaviour, one of the things which really stuck out for me about schools that had made big gear changes, big transformations in reasonably short periods of time in terms of the behaviour culture, one of the things that seemed to be common to them all was that there was a leader of some type. Now they could have very different leadership styles, democratic and warm and cuddly or fuzzy or tyrannical, but they were utterly convinced that they were on a mission, and there was something a wee bit unhinged about them, if I'm honest. Like chipping their shoulder. There was something wrong with them that made them just want to persist and carry on despite adversity. So you spoke a lot there about teamwork and collaboration, and we're all in it together, and we're just a bunch of wacky kids that just put on the show right here. I mean, you make it sound like the kids from Fame, but my point is this: you are an incredibly dominant figure. You've got the willpower of Oliver Cromwell, and you could melt steel with your ambition. So my question to you is, how much of Michaela's success rests on your shoulders, and how much of it would endure your removal? If you were to go somewhere else and become, to keep bees or something, as you've often spoken of. Would it crumble? Would it tumble? Would it fumble? I'll stop with the rhymes.
Yeah, people often say that, but they don't necessarily see me at work. So they don't get that Michaela isn't really about me. I mean, I remember once this boy, he's now in year 10, I think it is, when he was in year 7, he joined. And he said to me, Miss, are you the headmistress? And I said, yes. And he said, well, it doesn't really feel like you're the headmistress. And I said, oh yeah, is that because I suppose I'm not out in the yard and I'm not going, hey, and everybody over here and do it like this and so on. He said, yeah. I said, yeah, I can see what you mean, but trust me, I'm the headmistress. And, the thing is that I don't lead. I'm standing here going, rah, 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 rah. But look, when I give assembly, I'm doing the same. But I believe very much in making myself small so that others can be big. I'm not the one in the yard. You could spend a whole day at Michaela and not even necessarily see me much. I mean, I'm there and I'm making loads of decisions all the time. And I'm talking to staff. That's the main thing I'm doing, because I see my role as head to be very much there for the staff, and the staff are there for the children. That is key. I cannot be there for the children. There's only one of me, and there are several hundred of them. I need to be there for the staff so the staff can deliver their best for those children. And their tutor is the one who they talk to. And once upon a time, when I was a teacher and my little tutor group would come in and some of the little boys would call me mum instead of miss by mistake, and it was lovely. And I miss that. I miss it. And it's one of the things about headship that makes it a little bit lonely, because you went into teaching because you loved children, and then you don't get to spend your time with the children in the same kind of way. Yeah. And you go around saying, I'm the dragon lady and so on, and you make this whole pretense about being this kind of Wizard of Oz. I always say I'm the Wizard of Oz. They never know what's going to happen, something, I'm going to go shum, and that it empowers staff. And I think that is my role, to empower staff so that they can have those lovely, cuddly relationships with the children. I play a role at school, which actually In some ways, I miss the role of teacher, but I play a role which is to make myself small. So people hear me talking like this and they think, oh, it's all about Katharine. It really isn't. My staff are absolutely brilliant. And I always lead in a way so that they are developing themselves, so that they are the ones in the yard. You know, we've got this team of head of years, and one of the deputy runs them, and they're out there doing the most extraordinary things. Has nothing to do with me. I'm not even necessarily there at all, you know. And then I've got these heads of department who run their teams so brilliantly. I mean, during this crisis now that we have, and what my staff have been doing. I mean, I'm sorting out our building in Stevenage, because, you know, we're opening up a new school there, and I've been sorting out the book. I've been sorting out various things, but I'm not the one making the videos, the lessons to send to the children. I'm not the one doing the Zoom lessons. I'm not doing any of that stuff. They're doing it. So, you know, I don't believe the school is mine. The school is ours. And I 100% believe that when we open Stevenage, you know, obviously I'll be in both buildings, and then we'll open up a third school. I'll move them out amongst them. But the staff who I've got are just so committed and so brilliant and so Michaela. And that is the point about culture, you see. That's the thing. Because you would be right if we didn't have such a strong culture. And if that thread wasn't in everyone, then I would be worried. I'd be thinking, gosh, well, what's going to happen when someone else takes over these different schools? But it will be somebody internal. There's no way that it would ever be the case that we would have an external head come in to run a Michaela school, because it wouldn't be a Michaela school, because they have to be part of that culture. And given that all of the staff are, I don't see that as being a problem. You would be amazed at how hands-off I am and how much they make decisions. And not only do they make decisions, they tell me what to do. And I know that, I know a lot of people will think that's not possible. I am telling you, my senior team tell me what to do all of the time. And they tell me I'm an idiot all of the time, right? They say, no, Katharine, that's wrong. And all the time, right? We meet every morning, and they tell me what they think. And that is because our culture is one where I very much encourage people to speak their mind. I want them to be able to speak their mind so that we can run a better school. Because I've only got one brain, and I'm telling you, I am not clever enough to have come up with all the ideas at Michaela, right? I'm just not. All those ideas have come from different people. And sometimes it comes from guests who visit the school. I go to another school and pick up an idea, but there's also the fact that the staff are constantly thinking about how to make things better. I get several emails every week with them saying to me, this is a problem, this is my suggestion. Now, sometimes senior team and I will take on the suggestion and we'll implement it. Sometimes we won't. Sometimes the member of staff has made a suggestion, but they don't know that this is happening on the other side of the school, so it's not possible to make that work in the way that they wanted. But I would say the biggest reason why we are so tight is that SLT meet daily and are constantly reacting to what the staff are telling us. So they're telling us what's wrong, and then we're going out and trying to fix it. We are not imposing our will down on them. It doesn't work that way. And I know when you hear from me, because I'm quite passionate and gung-ho and all this, you know, people think, oh, she must be this real tyrant. I promise you, it is nothing like that. It really isn't. And the school wouldn't run well if it were like that, right? It just wouldn't.
At what point do you pull the lever and their chair rocks back and they fall into a tank full of sharks? I said, we're going to get a couple of minutes before I want to go into audience questions. I think there's one last question I wanted to ask you myself, which is something that comes up time and time again. The accusations are two things. When I go to Michaela, I see incredibly good behaviour, which, as you know, I'm fairly passionate about. The children are very happy and safe, and they're learning an extraordinary amount of skills and knowledge and so on. You know, the three key things: they're safe, they're happy, and they're learning. Right? What a lot of people throw back is that the reason why this has occurred is because you've got a very easy demographic and that you're not inclusive. How inclusive is Michaela?
Well, we're just like all the other schools in Brent, and Brent is one of the poorest boroughs in London. And we just, you know, we get the intake right now. there were appeals that were happening the other day in the same way as it would happen for any other school. The council has done the, has told us who we're having, just like they tell everybody else in the borough. We're just like all the other schools in Brent. The fact is, Brent is one of the poorest boroughs. We've got kids who carry knives, kids who get met outside by boys wearing masks, carrying knives themselves. A kid the other day from one of the local, well, not the other day, it was some months ago or a couple of years ago, he was killed by a South London gang. We've got kids of ours who are posting stuff on YouTube, gang related. We've got kids stealing mopeds. We've got kids, I don't know, involved with the police constantly. I mean, this is normal. I meant to say when you said, oh, everybody, all the kids say they love it. Look, there will be some kids at Michaela who will say they don't love it, There are some very naughty kids who will be going, oh, I'm not so sure. Now, I don't know. I mean, because it's a normal inner city school. It's what you said. At the end of the day, you come to the school and you think, well, actually, this is perfectly normal. There are good kids and there are bad kids and so on. And we've got a pretty typical intake. We don't interfere with that intake. We're just like all the other kids in all the other schools in Brent. So I don't really know why people, well, I know why people say that. They say that because rather than actually wanting to understand why our children are so motivated, why our children are kind to each other, why they are grateful for the little that they might have, why they are motivated to do big jobs later and so on, rather than really ask why, they just say, oh, that's how they are. Born that way. And that's just a load of nonsense. It is simply people trying to make excuses for themselves, because they look at their own classroom and they think, well, why isn't this happening to me? Now, the fact is that we have an advantage. We've had various advantages. So the advantages we've had, it's not the intake, because the intake is hardcore. The reason why I think as I do, because sometimes people think, well, why is it that you have to be so extreme with silent corridors? I don't know. You know what? There may be schools in the country where you don't need to have silent corridors for the children to walk along and be very friendly and so on. I went to visit Northern Collegiate, one of the private girls' schools in Harrow, and the girls were skipping along and having chats, and I looked around and thought, well, obviously you don't need silent corridors there. So I'm willing to accept that there will be schools out there where you don't need that. I have never worked in any of those schools. I have only ever worked in the inner city in London. And in all of my inner city London schools, so I've worked in Streatham, I've worked in Peckham, I've worked in Westminster. I mean, in all of my schools, they're all pretty similar to our school, except one of the schools I'd say that I worked at had maybe a third of a white middle class intake. We don't have any of those white middle class kids at Michaela. So, when people say that, they're just looking for excuses. The advantages we do have, though, are we started from scratch. That is a big advantage. I was able to lay out my stall, and then we would bring in people. And now anytime anyone joins Michaela, they're being brought into the fold. So that is a huge advantage. Other advantages that we have, I am very bold in what I think and do. I'm willing to take risks. When we first opened, and the DFE would send us an Ofsted inspector to come and kind of look, not to do Ofsted, but just we had our link person and the Ofsted guy, they'd come and look around just to kind of give they do this for all free schools, to give us a sense of where you're at, are you going to fail when Ofsted finally come, or are you going to pass? And they were terrified for us. And they would tell me all the time, Catherine, you could get anywhere from a 1 to a 4. And I'd say, well, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. And they'd say, no. What you need to do is you need to write your 3-year plan, and you need to write your CEF, and you need to write all this stuff down. And I'd always say, no, not doing it. And they would literally be begging, saying, please, we really want you to get that 1. And I'd say, yeah, so do I want that 1. But I'm not willing to do what I think is going to make the school worse in order to get that 1. And that Ofsted inspector, when he first came, and the other thing is I'm not easily intimidated. So like you said, when I don't give a damn, I mean, it takes a lot to intimidate me. And that says something when I tell you I was intimidated when setting up this school, and I was scared for my life, just to show you because it takes a lot to intimidate me. And he would say to me, he came back, I don't know, over a period of about a year and a half, he came 3 or 4 times. And on that first day, we argued with each other all day. because he was very much a progressive and I'm very much a traditionalist. And he didn't like the silence, and he didn't like the order, and he didn't like the structure, he didn't like anything. And he went to sit next to, at lunchtime, one of the boys who was one of our naughtiest. And he came out and I said, oh, what did he say? And he said he likes the school. I said, really? And why? And he said, well, he says you make them behave. And so gradually throughout the day, he started to change his mind. And over those times that he visited over that year and a half, he completely changed his view on the school, and now thinks it's brilliant, and now sends us people to come, he wants them to come and see the school. But it took a while. And that's why I say to your audience, give it a chance, put the book down, come and see the school, read the book again. I talk to many people where they say to me, well, at first I really didn't like what you were saying, but it's taken me 2 years, but I've come over to see your way of thinking. I didn't think this way all my life. I used to be like many of your viewers here, like I used to think like a typical lefty teacher. I changed my mind because over the years of teaching in the classroom, I saw things, and I was interested in what was true. I started that at the beginning. I believe in truth. And so I saw that what people were saying didn't work. So I'd try something different in my classroom, and I'd see that worked. And so I started to change my own practice. I started to change my expectations in terms of teaching, but also in terms of behavior. Then when I eventually got to senior management, I started implementing behavior systems across the school. And suddenly the fire alarms would stop going off. Suddenly the fights that were happening all the time in the corridors would stop. And so I have done change in schools. And that change made me think, well, wow, look, this school could always have been like this. If only we'd had these different systems, And so I believe in evidence. I believe in looking at what's in front of you and then comparing it. If you change something, well, is it better or is it worse? I always say, don't listen to me. Come and see the school. Come and see the children. Talk to the staff. They will convince you. That Ofsted inspector I talk about who came to visit us, he was convinced by that boy in particular who was naughty and saying that we made him behave. But also every time he came back, I suppose he got more used to the silence. It didn't offend him anymore.
You broke him, Catherine. You ground him to this. Listen, can I ask you to pause just for? So sorry. It's just that, but it's gone so quickly. I mean, I could talk up this all night with you. We've got about 12 minutes left.
Longer, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's actually 9 o'clock. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Midnight.
I'm happy to go longer anyway.
I've got some. I don't think we can. I think these things. I don't know. The people running. My children will run in at some point. Can I ask a few questions then? And can I ask you to be super brief? I know that's going to be a struggle.
Okay.
Because there's some brilliant questions here, which I just think are so good. So briefly, if you can, it's a question from Liz Sidwell. How will you ensure more Michaela schools doesn't end up diluting your philosophy? How are you going to ensure that the culture is ramped up and maintained?
Yeah. Well, and that's about trying to keep that system of bringing people into the fold. So trying to keep Michaela staff and putting them in positions of leadership and then teaching others on how to be Michaela. It is about the power of culture. And if you can keep that culture by ensuring that you have enough Michaela people, you see, if you tip the balance, you've got too many non-Michaela people, then you won't keep that culture. You've got to bring people in and make them Michaela, which is why, one of our chapters is about being new at Michaela. One of the staff has written, and she says how, it really is, you're kind of thrown in there and you learn a hell of a lot, but, and everybody's very supportive, but it's very fast. And one of the reasons why it is so fast is that we want to try and inculcate people into the Michaela way as quickly as possible.
Okay, looking forward to seeing that. I'm sure there'll be people picketing these ones as well, but we'll see. Here's one from Teresa Ash, which I think is very opposite. It's a COVID-19 question. What do you think will be the key challenges for school leaders when schools reopen, and how can these be best managed?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what they want us to do. If they want us to social distance, and I don't know if that's what they're going to require, but if they do want us to, then we need to find ways of reducing the number of children in schools, because I've been very vocal about this. It's obviously impossible to social distance in a school with a full school. If you want social distance, then you have to leave some of your groups at home. And then I suppose we're waiting on Sunday to see what they say on that, when we open, and then in what capacity. And then I suppose if you have few enough children, you try and collapse your timetable and redo your timetable with the people who don't have underlying issues, because presumably the underlying issues, people will stay at home. You then, with whatever staff you've got left, hopefully have maybe 15 kids in a class, and then you can spread them out, and you try and make it work that way. We have a very awkward building. The corridors are very small. I mean, the thing is, we do have very good behavior. And so I do know that when we ask the children to behave in a certain way, they're going to do it. I do feel for people in situations where the children aren't necessarily going to do as they've been asked to do. It isn't easy. Yeah, I suppose that's it.
I mean, I completely agree. I've already mentioned this myself. I don't think that kind of social distancing is going to be possible. And I think there was a really good point somebody made, said that if you can't achieve social distancing in your school, even if you can't guarantee that level of behavioural efficiency, then it's probably not nice. Right, another good one. Schools in England have got, this is from Stephen Maston, schools in England have got a huge amount of freedom, hence the amazing things you've been able to do. Would you rather live in England where the Secretary of State mandated certain practices like flying the flag or learning the anthem, or in England where schools had freedom but could choose to eschew the power of culture?
Yeah, so I suppose I answered that earlier. I do believe very much in heads having the freedom to do what they think is right for their school. I do, however, wish that there were more of a culture in our society that was able to bind us all together. You know, it would be weird in Colombia if the football were on and you're in a pub and you're asking people in the pub, oh, so and Colombia's playing, oh, which team do you support? Do you support England or do you support Colombia? Like, that would just be weird. Of course, everybody in the pub in Colombia is supporting Colombia. And it ought to be the case that we're all supporting England here, wherever we're from, whatever color we are. And that's because it's our country. And we ought to love our country, warts and all. That's not to say the country is perfect, but there is something distinctly weird about England. You know, the fact is that America, for instance, the United States of America, has all sorts of issues on race and culture and so on. But nobody would ever imagine that they're not American together. Americans wouldn't, you know, if they're playing against another country, a particular sport, I mean, they're not, football isn't necessarily their sport, but they believe in America, whatever color they are. England has a problem, and it's unique in the entire world.
England has a problem, says Katharine Birbalsingh. That's tomorrow's headline. I look forward to that. The headline should really be, you know, I love children by Katharine Birbalsingh, and, you know, I'm not as opposed to hating them. Okay, so that's a good one. It is clear, this is from Neil McGowan, it is clear that Michaela School is a wonderful place to learn and teach. However, it appears that almost all the staff are extroverts with super self-confidence, happy to sing in public, recite poetry to their classes, and aspire to be future head teachers. Would a quiet, hardworking and diligent professional who doesn't light up the restaurant when they walk in, I love that line, fit in, be successful and feel valued? Yeah,
well, I mean, I would say that people can have presence in different kinds of ways. I mean, I don't want to name staff, but there's certain staff. I mean, there's a well-known head of department that we've got who, you know, she runs a very tight department, and she's a fierce teacher, you know, she's amazing. But she isn't somebody who marches into a room and goes ta-da at all. She's quite the opposite to me.
As the best teachers do, obviously, yes.
Well, you know, you need to be a good teacher. You need to have some way of being able to win the kids over. You know, people often think Michaela's all about systems, and we are about systems. We're also about love and relationships with the kids. And you have to find some way of being able to have a relationship with your kids. Some people do it through humor. I was never a humor person. I was more, I love you so much, you know, that's how I am. Some people do it through love. Some people do it through, you know, all sorts, telling stories. you have to have something that means that you can connect with kids. It's connection. And if you're too awkward and quiet to be able to have that connection, then I don't think you will make it as a teacher generally. I mean, anywhere, because I mean, you might survive as a teacher, but you'll never be excellent, because the number one thing that matters in teaching, and remember, Katharine Birbalsingh is saying this, and I believe in all the behavior systems and in the order and the structure and so on, but the number one thing that makes a child work for you is that they know that you love them, right? That's it. And you might do that because you're really jokey. You might do that because you got loads of energy. You might do that in a quiet way. Whatever way you do it, the child needs to know that you have their back and you are on their side. And if you don't have that relationship, the child will never do their work for you. It won't happen.
I love it. I also love the fact we finally managed to convince you to speak about yourself in the third person there, which is somewhat of an achievement at any point in the conversation. So amateur psychologists will read as much as they like into that. Here's something which is a bit less, well, I don't know if it's a leadership question or not, but it's certainly an interesting one. This is from Bernadine Sykes. She says, what advice would you give to a classroom teacher on implementing some of your principles? What would you say to a teacher, not to Michaela?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that you say about behavior, you've got to be consistent. So I'm trying to get consistency across the staff. You as a teacher in your classroom, and this is the case for any parents who are listening, or maybe teachers, right? It's the same thing. Children love consistency. They need to know that you're not just going to blow your top. You can't. People often think that punishment is bad because they imagine somebody getting really angry and giving a punishment. That's not what should happen, parent or teacher. It should be that the child is clear. If I do X, Y happens. If I do A, B happens. They know that they can get praise and punishment. And you shake hands on it to begin with. Often we say to parents, let's write out a contract. So between you and the child, so that at home, that contract can help support you as a parent. As long as you're clear and the child knows what the expectations are, then when the child chooses to do something wrong, well, they've made that choice. That children have agency and they can choose to do right or wrong. And they can also know that when they do right, they get praised. When they do wrong, they get punished. And so you as a classroom teacher need to develop a really clear behavior system, whatever that is. And if you don't have a whole school behavior system at your school, you have your own one with your own detentions that happen after school. And you make sure you mean what you say and you say what you mean. That is, you cannot ever tell a child X is going to happen and then it doesn't happen. You can't do that, because they will never take you seriously after that. And anything you say after that, oh, I want a piece of homework in for Monday. Oh, I want you to turn up at this trip. They're never going to do it for you, because you have demonstrated and proved yourself to be totally unreliable and somebody who doesn't care enough about them to hold the line. That is what I always say. You hold the line as a parent, as a teacher, anybody who is in a position of authority with a child. You need to hold the line. And when you hold that line, look, children always, they're naughty. That's what they do. And what they're hoping for, what they're really hoping for, is that they're going to try and be naughty with you, and you're going to go, That's what they want from you. So you've got to show that with your consistency, always following up. Kid doesn't show up to detention, next day you go and find them. You get them. You ring home. I used to have, when I was a teacher, I'd have an hour at the end of every day. I had an hour put aside so I could get on the phone and ring the parents. And some of those phone calls were good phone calls. So I'd get those parents on side. And I was giving stars and stickers in their books all the time, because the worst kind of kids who are out there meeting gang members and stealing mopeds, they smile like anything when they get a little stamp in their book, right? So you are in charge. One of our chapters is about being an authority in the classroom and not feeling awkward about it, right? Not feeling like, oh, but actually the kids are just like me. All this idea that, ooh, we're all the same, we're on the same level. No, we're not the same. No, we are adults and we are in charge and we are in the position of authority. And the children want us to be in that position. They are looking to us to drive that bus forward. They are looking to us to teach us, to teach them. They're looking to us to set the tone, to set the expectations. And then when they don't meet the expectations, they want us to hold them to account for that, so that the next time they can be better than they were the last time.
Katharine, I don't know how to top that, so I won't even try. You talk about authority there. The one authority over us all is time. That was an extraordinary experience, as it always is, listening to and speaking with you. You've been an exceptional success. You have broken so many molds. I don't think there's any molds left to break. The book is wonderful, and I mean that sincerely. I think it's wonderful how explicit it is about revealing and unpacking your methods so other people can experience it too. I think I need a stiff cup of chamomile tea now to calm down after all that. I'm sure most of the viewers and listeners will too. But I guess it just behoves me at this point to say thank you very much. Thank you for what you're doing. Wonderful book, and best wishes, and hopefully we'll see you again in happier times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. And thanks to all of you for coming along.
Yes, I enjoyed it too. So thanks.
Yeah.
So, do visit Katharine's website, which no doubt we can work with at some point. Okay, take care. Bye.